It's Senior Bowl week, so Alabama, here we come. Hey guys, hope everyone is having a great start to the week. Just wanted to hop on here today, quickly talk about the Senior Bowl. Now, I'm not a draft scout expert, never claimed to be, and I'm not going to be in Mobile for the festivities. So I do encourage you to check out guys like Quincy Carrier, Corey Kinnan for a more in-depth analysis on the guys competing in the Senior Bowl this year. However, I do just want to talk about, why I think the Senior Bowl is an important tool for draft evaluation, especially obviously for the Browns, and highlight a few players and position groups that I think the Browns will be looking at in particular during the week down in Mobile. So, as we now know, the Reese's Senior Bowl, otherwise known as the East-West Shrine Bowl, is officially underway as of Tuesday this week, with practices taking place all week leading up to the game itself on Saturday, the 1st of February. Crikey, February already, guys. The Senior Bowl is, as you probably know, as the name suggests, it is traditionally for college seniors who have completed their college eligibility. However, from I think about 2 years ago, underclassmen are now also eligible to play in the All-Star game as well. Over 120 players have accepted invitations this year and will be at the Senior Bowl in some capacity throughout the week. So, a whole lot of guys to look at as part of the Browns draft evaluation for this year's draft. So why is the Senior Bowl important for the Browns and for any team really? It provides one of the biggest opportunities for talent evaluation for such a large amount of the draft eligible players. Last year alone, 110 players who were involved in the Senior Bowl then went on to be selected in the draft. So that's, 43% of the entire 2024 draft class. The Senior Bowl offers teams their first look at such a large portion of draft eligible players and, gives them a chance to meet with these guys as well as watch how they practice and how they play. The Browns' entire scouting contingent will be in Mobile this week, evaluating and meeting with the players. And, even more crucially, the team will have coaches involved within the Senior Bowl coaching staffs this year. Assistant head coach and special teams coordinator Bubba Ventrone will be the head coach for the American team, and defensive line coach Jax Cesar will be the defensive coordinator for the national team. Maybe this is why the Browns haven't sacked Bubba Ventrone, because they wanted to use him, as a tool for evaluating players at the Senior Bowl first. But all seriousness, the Browns are in a fantastic position with having two of their coaches heavily involved in both rosters at the Senior Bowl. It gives them a chance to evaluate guys from both of the rosters. You basically get to, meet with and evaluate every single player at the Senior Bowl who is participating. See how they practice, see how they respond to coaching. Just a really invaluable resource to have, and it gives me a lot of confidence that the team will get all their due diligence done, when it comes to evaluating these guys as potential prospects for the Browns. Plenty of guys, drafted under this current regime played in the Senior Bowl, so it's obvious that, the Browns find it to be a valuable resource in their own draft evaluation process. Now, whilst traditionally, the top prospects tend to not fully participate in the Senior Bowl, if not at all. And whilst I personally don't think whoever the Browns draft at 2 is taking part in the festivities this week, they do still have a chance to, have a look at a lot of guys they would consider drafting with their higher picks, as well as their later picks as well. And, also get an opportunity to talk to guys like Shedeur Sanders who aren't taking part but, have been down in Mobile for the team interviews, etc. So, speaking of Shedeur Sanders, the Browns will get a good look at this quarterback class during the Senior Bowl this week, and whilst I don't expect them to use the second overall pick on a quarterback, they likely probably draft one of the guys that are taking part this week, if that's day 2 or onwards. They did, of course, interview with Shedeur, and it was reported that they told him not to practice this week, which, even if is true, it wouldn't really matter, as he was never going to practice anyway. Again, I don't expect them to go quarterback at 2, but I have also said that Shedeur Sanders is the one guy that I wouldn't be completely shocked if they did select within the top 5 of the draft. They'll, of course, take a look at, all of these guys, but it is always a bonus to get early access to a prospect that, they could consider with the second pick in the draft. A more likely prospect for the Browns at quarterback, in my opinion, and one that, if I'm honest, I'm slowly kind of convincing myself to come around on, is Jaylen Milo. He will be taking part in practices and playing in the game itself, so the Browns will get a great look at, his potential as well as his work ethic and, his character, with either Bubba Ventrone or Jack Cesar spending essentially the entire week with him, or, part of his team. If they were to draft Milroe, it would most likely be with the 33rd pick in the draft, and I don't see him lasting too much later than that. So, if they don't get a trade back package for the second overall pick, then the 33rd pick could be their last top 50 pick in the draft, a pretty high value asset. So if you are going to invest, that pick into a project at quarterback, at least you'll get the best possible information you can that, will help inform you on that decision. The Browns will have the Senior Bowl, the Combine, of course, their own prospect visits to evaluate a guy like Jaylen Milo. So, if they were to use the 33rd pick on him, hell, or even the second pick, if they do fall in love with him, then at least that decision will be as informed as it can be. Other quarterbacks that will be down in Mobile include the newly crowned national champion, Will Howard, a guy who, as I said, in one of my previous videos, I would happily take a flyer on him if the Browns decide to go quarterback, round 3 or later. And of course, that's if his draft stock doesn't rise higher than that during this whole draft process to a point where he's already gone by then anyway. You've also got Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss, who is another potential day 2 option for the Browns. Then you've got some potential day 3 guys, maybe late day 2 in, Notre Dame's Riley Leonard and Oregon's Dylan Gabriel. Funnily enough, 2 guys that Will Howard and Ohio State beat in the playoffs on their way to their national championship. So as I said, pretty much got the whole quarterback class to have a look at. Great chance to evaluate these guys, especially considering, I expect one of them to be on the roster next year for the Browns. And finally, on the quarterbacks, before anyone thinks that I'm just being a Cam Ward hater, he's not participating in the Senior Bowl, and there's been no reports that the Browns have met with him. I know that I've said that I'm not interested, but I promise I will talk about him in some capacity when I do my draft prospect videos. Moving on to some other position groups and, players I think the Browns will have their eyes on, and guys that I've got my eyes on this week. The Browns will for sure be looking at this offensive line class. You've got potential first rounders in guys like Josh Connolly out of Oregon, Ursary from Minnesota, and Armand Membu out of Missouri. Certainly guys that could be in play for the Browns if they do fall out of the first round. The Browns have found offensive line talent out of the Senior Bowl before. You look at Joel Bitonio and, of course, DeJuan Jones as a recent example. There's no way that the Browns go O-line in the first round unless they trade back pretty far. So most of the guys they'll be looking at will be day 2 and day 3. Most of those guys will be at the Senior Bowl. So just another great chance to, get a head start on the evaluation of these guys. The defensive line class at the Senior Bowl is arguably the strongest out of the positions. Texas A&M's Nick Scouton and Shamar Stewart. Ole Miss's Walter Nolan and Princely Umanialian. I completely butchered that. I'm so sorry. Along with Dion Walker out of Kentucky. They're all potential day one picks and provide a bunch of guys that the Browns could target if they do decide to go defensive line early in the draft. You've also got Mike Green out of Marshall, who, blew up with 17 sacks last year and has the potential to rise all the way into the first round, depending on how his draft process goes. Unfortunately, my favourite prospect in the draft, Abdul Carter, will obviously not be participating. But there is a whole bunch of defensive line talent on display at the Senior Bowl this week. So, if that's a position group that you're interested, then you're certainly in luck. The Browns are most likely as well probably going to draft a tight end this year, and every Browns fan's dream tight end will also be participating this week. Harold Fanning, had one of the best seasons from a tight end in college football history last year. 117 receptions for 1,555 yards and 10 touchdowns, for Ohio's own Bowling Green nonetheless. The Senior Bowl and Combine will give him a great chance to bump his draft stock up, and whilst I don't see the Browns really having a chance to draft him, a man can only dream. Finally, I think the Browns will, of course, be looking at the running backs, wide receivers, and the DBs. Most of the top guys at these positions won't be participating at the Senior Bowl, but given how much Andrew Berry absolutely loves a third-round corner and a fifth-round wide receiver, and obviously how much the Browns need to probably draft 2 running backs this year, I think they'll definitely be looking at some of these guys this week. Receivers, Tez Johnson out of Oregon and Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. Running backs, Cam Scatterbo out of Arizona State and Kentucky's Devin Neal, as well as defensive backs, Andrew Makuba out of Texas and Kentucky's Maxwell Hairston. They all highlight some of the guys at those position groups that I will be keeping an eye on this week, and some guys I expect the Browns as well. Overall, this week is going to be great for all of the players involved, and they all have a chance to boost their draft stock, and will also provide an invaluable tool for the Browns scouting department and give them early access into evaluating such a large number of prospects for the upcoming draft. I mean, let me just remind you one more time, 43% of all players drafted last year participated in the Senior Bowl that year. Just a really, really important part of the draft evaluation process. And, with the Browns not just having all of their scouts down in Mobile, but, also having position coaches within key roles on the coaching staffs for both teams within the Senior Bowl, they have a better chance to get a look at these prospects as anybody. As I mentioned, Browns aside, this week provides a great chance for guys to improve their draft stock, get them closer to achieving their dreams. So the Senior Bowl is just always a great experience to watch anyway, even for that alone. And I hope one day that I can be down there in Mobile myself, just to experience it all and, take it all in. But as I said at the start, just wanted to hop on here, talk about, why I think the Senior Bowl is important, and just highlight some of those players that, I'm going to be keeping an eye on. So if you weren't interested in the Senior Bowl before, I encourage you to check it out this week. Follow guys like Daniel Oefusi on Twitter. Daniel, I'm really sorry if I just butchered your last name there. I'm terrible at last names, guys, if you haven't guessed already. But follow him. Probably the best Browns beat writer out there to, keep up to date with all things Browns at the Senior Bowl. And check out, again, as I said, guys like Quincy Carrier, Corey Kinnan, for more, proper in-depth analysis on the players there, especially any potential Browns targets. But that would do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free and it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and connect with me on social media. You know, I'm always looking for video ideas, guests to come on and talk to. So if you know anyone, you got anything you want me to talk about, drop me a DM, you know, get in touch with me on social media, and we can work something out. But I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and as I always say, even if I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy, because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have an amazing rest of the week. Enjoy the Senior Bowl, but most importantly, go Browns.